going to talk to you about AI. The general sort of theme was, can machines learn how to comply with GDPR? For me, artificial intelligence, GDPR, ethics, it is something that is very, very topical at the moment and very important as well. Privacy rights all come under this type of thing when you're dealing with personal data. I like to give it a little bit of a background as to how come I stand before you. I mean, Graham gave you my potted resume of my bio. Been an academic, I've worked in the NHS, I've worked in local government, I've worked in newspapers, private industry, yada, yada, yada. However, what really brought me here is those two. They are responsible, I guarantee, they are responsible for me standing in front of you today. As a child back in the 70s, I was inspired by robots, having a brain, being able to think, being able to do actions. And that inevitably, see, I'm of the child of the 70s, that kind of led into Blade Runner. Or, as I actually read the book before the film came out, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Philip K. Dick. That inevitably, as I went on, moved into Arnie Schwarzenegger and Terminator. All of these things shaped my fascination. And so from that, I studied computing and electronics. And as a result, I end up standing in front of you today. I'm there to defend you against Skynet. No, I'm not. AI and robotics, they are two different subjects. They do and will come back together very closely over the next few years, I'm sure. At the moment, though, AI and big data, as Graham said, it is that powerful thing within the computing sector that will make changes. As we go through, we've got an awful lot of time before 1 o'clock, by the way. If you do wish to ask a question, don't wait to the end. Wave, Graham will spot you, shout. If I don't get to the end of the slides, don't worry. Lunch is more important, trust me. Jeez. So, the only difference between the person who stands in front of you now and the child of 1977, I can help push AI forward. And that's really what I want to do. One of the reasons I'm at the ICO is not to sort of just go, no, you can't do that. I very much wanted to be part of the ICO to go, let's find a way for you to do it. Let us help. And I'm very grateful to Elizabeth Denham, the Commissioner, who gives me that lateral whenever possible. She's of the same mindset. The ICO are here to help. We're not the Department of No. We want to push forward. I propose to consider the question, can machines think? This should begin with definitions of the meaning of the terms machine and think. The definitions might be framed so as to reflect so far as possible the normal use of the words, but this attitude is dangerous. If the meaning of the words machine and think are to be found by examining how they are commonly used, it is difficult to escape the conclusion that the meaning and the answer to the question, can machines think, is to be sought in a statistical survey, such as a Gallup poll. But this is absurd. Instead of attempting such a definition, I shall replace the question by another, which is closely related to it and is expressed in relatively unambiguous words. They're not my words. You may have told I just read them out. Alan Turing's words, the 1950s. He had a paper called Computing Machinery and Intelligence, and that comes from the first section of the paper entitled The Imitation Game. That can be considered the birth of artificial intelligence, or at least the definition of artificial intelligence. And that, in the early days, in the tech industry, we referred to that as the winter of artificial intelligence, like Graham said in the opening. So much promise, but so little was delivered in those early years. More recently, we've witnessed the coming of spring. I've talked about science fiction, but today we're talking about science fact. AI is here. is being used, and we need to ensure people's privacy is looked after at all costs. AI is a technology that potentially could change the world forever and will certainly enhance business. I'm very sure it's going to do both. This is a turning point. From this point on, the world will never be the same again. Once artificial intelligence truly starts to be used and starts to impact on our daily lives, our world will never be the same again. So, I am one of those who's been waiting for this since the 70s. Not much longer than that. But it's here, and it is starting to be used. Since the explosion of the internet, we've had an age of new enlightenment. I like to refer to it as a new renaissance. This idea where Gutenberg's printing press, back in the 14 whatever it was, could share information and allow people to read and access printed information. The internet allows any of us to get information whenever we please. And as part of that, we've created big data sets. And artificial intelligence can look at those data sets and can use it and learn lots of things about us. Some things we may not want them to know. We need to control our privacy. AI is this paradigm shift. It's got so much potential. Could it even be used to recognize fake news for us? I'm sure somebody somewhere will eventually have AI to create fake news for us. I hope it can be used to control a central nervous system for the planet, to monitor our oceans, to monitor pollution, temperature, climate change. That would be something. I'm a great believer in autonomous vehicles. I would love to see autonomous vehicles used, to be able to allow people who have lost the ability to drive to still have their mobility and their freedom, which is how I see autonomous vehicles. It can also be a great social maneuver. It can help society. Who knows, may even create a cure for cancer or find a cure for cancer at the very least. So its potential is very, very promising. Having worked in the NHS, the idea of having something that can help with early diagnosis would be fantastic. I used to actually work in a cancer hospital, Clatterbridge. Having early diagnosis is so important. If you can have an AI that can trawl through data sets and spot the people who are most at risk and get early intervention, that is a huge benefit for society, for the population. So we're embarking on a journey. It will, without doubt, have considerable impact on society, as I've said. Accordingly, it is important to us for engaging in this discussion now, hence the reason why I stand in front of you today. Companies must, and I'm sure will, rise to this challenge.